What happened? Does he know politics at this point?
Yeah.
Because you got that jackass
Yeah,
Jack
there was a period
Evangelos,
back in Shameful.
Rachel Talbot Ross, Charlotte Warren, and Morales.
Keep up with
No, that
He was trying to figure out why I was doing it because I hadn't filed it.
Yeah, I got
I can't, I'm screwing it up.
Details and stuff out of it.
Uh-oh.
That was it.
Turn it on. Okay, we got live, Larry. And we,
Hello, Mr. Cody.
hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good evening, it is April 7th. And this is the regular meeting of the county commissioner. The time is 5:16. Pledge allegiance to the flag of
The United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is Roland? Let me know when Roland. When I'm writing down. Okay. Approve with waiver of the reading of the minutes from the March 17th meeting. Motion?
I move to accept and approve the minutes of meeting date March 17th, 2021 with waiver.
I'll second it.
Okay, and any discussion of those minutes?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir. Mr. Commissioner Larry?
I would just raise a concern. Once again, we allow certain people to add their discussions that aren't commissioners while not including all other commissioner discussions. So I respectfully ask that practice cease. And if we're going to start reporting different people's comments, then we should be reporting all commissioner comments and not just those that counter certain commissioners' statements. Case in point, under new business regarding Sheriff's Exploratory Committee, Administrator Post stated the charter refers to commissioners creating a committee. They're talking about a committee of commissioners. It's not an outside committee. It doesn't preclude anyone else going ahead with other committees. I just find it interesting that we allow certain people to interject as they wish, but not record all other commissioners' comments and concerns. If we're going to get in that, we should start doing it consistently across the board. Thank you.
Yes. Commissioner Madore?
Yes, I had a question. I was kind of wondering if there was more, anything in particular that wasn't included in here, because, Commissioner Larry's concern, I'm just trying to figure out what that's about, because I see a lot of comments from him in here, and really very few comments from other people. So it looks like, his voice is being heard, so I was curious, like, what kind of conversations wasn't included in this kind of synopsis?
Would anyone like to address, speak to that?
Commissioner Larry,
Yeah, are you able to hear what was said?
I guess what's the point?
Okay, if you'd like to, I want to make sure you can hear before is there anyone that would like to?
Oh, no, I'm not questioning you, Madam Chair. I'm trying to understand what the point is. What is the concern being raised other than the one I've raised?
Well, that's basically my question. Yeah.
My concern is that it's kind of interesting that this is the county commissioners meeting, but we allow others to interject and we record those comments while not recording comments from the public verbatim or even attempting to get all of their concerns, especially specifically the firearms concern that they raised and the metal detectors concern that they raised. So I think if we're going to start doing this, allowing the administrator to interject as he wishes during these meetings, we should also make sure we make this fair for the taxpayer and include all the comments from the taxpayers. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to vote on accepting the minutes? Okay, all in favor? And those on Zoom verbal, please. Commissioner Poirier, he's not on yet. Commissioner Larry?
Nay.
Okay, and that was 5 in the affirmative and 1 nay. Okay, review and approval of all the warrants. Motion, please.
Madam Chair, I move to approve all manual warrants payroll, 1028 and 2110, and corrections warrants 2129J and 2130J.
A second to that motion,
I'll second it.
and discussion about the warrants. Okay, and we have no discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the approval of the warrants? And a verbal by Zoom? Mr. Larry?
Nay.
Larry? That is 5 approved, 1 negative, 1 nay. All right.
Can I just butt in real quick? Commissioner Poirier will be joining shortly. He's
Okay,
having some technical difficulties. So I just texted him to give him some extra directions to log in.
okay. Would you like us to recess for a minute and give him a little bit of time to get
That's
on?
up to you.
Commissioners like to recess for a couple minutes and give,
I make a motion to recess.
Just give him, like, I don't know, 5 minutes maybe.
yes, that would be good. Thank you. I think the administrator is going to take care of introducing. I think that's what I overheard.
Okay.
Are you, is that right, Mr. Post?
So, here he comes.
Are you going to take care of introducing Attorney Dietrich?
I'll introduce it to everybody.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to recess unless Commissioner Poirier is available.
He
We
is,
already did.
whoops,
Good.
he just needs to mute.
He's on mute. Can we ask him to unmute?
Can you try muting on your
I'm
end?
sorry, yes, I'm sorry. I'm having
Wonderful.
technical difficulties, I apologize.
How you doing?
Set you up. We just went through the minutes and we went through the warrants, so we haven't hit any of the discussion
Yeah,
items yet.
I could hear you, but you could not see me.
Oh, okay, good. Well, we can see you now, so that's good. Maine County Commissioners Association report. Mr. Madore.
I don't believe there's been a meeting since last, but there will be one coming up.
Okay, great. Central Maine Workforce, Commissioner Kelly.
I do have some interesting things to report to you this evening. Budget planning and revisions are underway for the Workforce Board. There is a point of contention regarding a subscription to Premier Virtual Services. It's a new subscription that the Workforce Board would like to subscribe to because of the mass benefits that our constituents here in Androscoggin County and, taxpayers would, at $67,000, it meets the threshold of concern of the Department of Labor. But the benefits of it are far-reaching, including mass benefit enrollment and hiring events virtually that could be conducted all over the state and Androscoggin County, of course. It could provide for mass education and trade fairs and assist those with employment barriers, whether it be disabilities or language barriers, so on and so forth. It also allows for multiple language interfaces available for a wider demographic. And that's something that we see, especially in Lewiston, could benefit a wide variety of people. The budget is still under the negotiation phase, and I will report as things progress. More to be known at the next meeting.
Questions? Yes. Bernard?
Not really a question, more of a comment, but I think as we, get more perspective on what the federal money can be spent for, one of the things it does talk about is disbursement to nonprofits, and I wonder maybe that it would be a fitting use of some of it is to try to help people get back to work, assuming that it's something that seems like a viable thing, but just an idea.
And under future agenda items, I'll speak on this later. There is an individual from the Workforce Board who would like to come and speak to us at our next meeting. I'll bring that up during future agenda items. Thank you.
So when you're talking about the threshold of does that mean the Department of Labor would kick in the funds?
No, the
for that
Department of
program?
Labor is concerned over the amount. 67,000 is more than they want to spend for such a service. So they're butting heads in that regard. So trying to prove their case that it's a worthwhile service.
Okay, any other questions?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
thank you.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Kelly, what exactly are they wishing to discuss with the commission? It would just help to have sort of an idea of what their either request or concern is, or, is this just a presentation meeting, or is there something they're going to be asking the commission to be considering or voting for or against?
Not asking for anything, just a general update, giving more detail than I'm able to give. Just a general update, on what's going on in the local area, and to give an in-depth look at certain reports that have been published recently that are, many hundred pages long, and I am ill-equipped to present those. So she would like to come and speak. Her name is Susan Sereni. She would like to come and speak to us at our April 21st meeting.
Thank you.
The 66,000, is that a yearly fee?
67,000. I believe so. I believe that it's a yearly subscription. Their yearly budget.
Anything else? Commissioner Kelly?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
And in your package, you have the administrator's report.
Okay, just very quickly, the EMA renovation is close to being done. I have continually been kept up to date regarding the vaccine efforts in the county. EMA, working with the state, has been involved in several aspects of this effort. We are monitoring the American Rescue Plan for what will be allowed and not allowed in expenditures of these funds. And to date, the rules are still a work in progress. Several tours of the building have been given in regards to the proposed renovation. Review of vehicle equipment bids was undertaken with a recommendation before you at this meeting. We are preparing to increase our patrol to 24-hour coverage in Poland as per their town vote. And this is going to involve hiring more officers and so on. So that's taking place. I have been reviewing the legislative updates, bills, etc. from MCCA and MMA. And it appears that Sanity has not returned to Augusta yet. We are making progress on addressing the issues in the website vulnerability report we received, and we're also looking as part of that at updating or creating a new website. So Doug is working hard on that. I have, as normal, met with department heads individually regarding various issues. The budget calendar for commissioners and budget committee for the 2022 budget has been created and it is in your packet. You can review that. We will be bringing forth proposed PSAP rates for the next 3 years for commission review and approval. And we're applying for a safety grant for facilities for an air filtration and vacuum system for the wood shop that they have. And life is still good in Muscogee County.
Okay, thank you.
As
Thank you.
as still part of that, my next item is to introduce to you Amy Dietrich from Skelton, Taylor and Abbott. And she has done work for us in the past. She hasn't done a lot for us for the last 2 or 3 years because I've been too stingy with the legal budget. But on that note, Amy, the floor is yours. But some of you have been here a couple of years and still haven't met her, so it's time.
Sure, what's the best place for me to stand so that the
Mhm.
folks on there can hear me?
They
or
can,
see me?
they can see you.
This will pick you up when you're talking, it'll turn
Oh,
to
okay,
you.
great.
It's on you right now.
It's pretty fancy technology. So as Larry mentioned, my name's Amy Dietrich. I'm a partner at Skelton, Taylor and Abbott, which is right across the way there. I have been one of the county's lawyers since 2014, so I have seen a few of you before, but some of you are newer and we haven't had to be involved yet. Our involvement, Skelton, Taylor and Abbott's involvement with the county is generally through Larry. And so if there are issues relating to employment matters, contracts, things of that nature, he typically asks for a second opinion when he feels it's necessary. And Skelton, Taylor and Abbott has been the county's lawyer since, I want to say the 60s or the 70s. It's been a very long time. And we've enjoyed a very long, productive relationship with the county commissioners, and we look forward to that continuing. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I really just wanted to come and show you at least the top third of my face so that you have something in your mind when you picture us. So thank you for having me at your meeting, and I look forward to listening to the rest of your meeting.
Would you entertain questions or would you rather not?
Oh, gosh,
You're a
sure.
guest, so I'll let you decide. Okay. Any questions for Attorney Dietrich?
When did the administrator know about it?
No.
When did he know about it? Thanks for being here, actually, thank you for being available. I understand we haven't used you too much. But you're right across the street pretty much, so you can throw a rock over and get your attention if you do need something, and probably will from time to time.
I'm happy to do
Nice
it.
nice to know you're there.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to thank you for joining us. I think it's about time, and I think perhaps we could use your services a bit more in the future, especially as we have this kind of behemoth landed on us, and it's going to be complicated to make sure that we're following the rules. So I think your involvement with the county, I think. Could be increased, and I think we live in a complicated world, and our world just got a bit more complicated, so I think your assistance would be great.
Thank you so much for coming. I
My
appreciate it
pleasure.
Very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Attorney, Commissioner Larry?
Yes. Attorney Dietrich, how often have you been contacted by the county, either the commissioners or the administrator in the past 3 years?
I have to confess that I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of billing records.
Understood.
But as Larry indicated, we haven't done a whole lot of work for the county within the last 3 years. Areas that I typically get involved with are around approving contracts or around employee issues. And I would say probably less than 10 times within the last 3 years have we been engaged by the county to do some amount of work, but more specific than that, I would hesitate to say, just because I could be wrong.
And those are paid contract, but are you contacted more often for, in the sense of just bouncing questions off of you in smaller amounts, smaller details?
Not typically, and the reason for that is, and Commissioner Larry, maybe you don't have the policy. There is a policy that the commissioners enacted, I think it was in 2015, which directs all communications to Skelton, Tanner, and Abbott and the county's attorneys through the county administrator. So it is an exceedingly rare occurrence where that is not how I get to be involved with something.
No, but that also, much of that is subject to board review, or the chair is able to reach out to you as well separately without the approval of the administrator. That's something with that. And I believe that policy was also updated, I think, in a year or two ago as well, for further clarification of how that information is obtained and who owns it and where it goes. So I just want to make sure you have the most updated copy. I believe that policy was updated a year or two ago.
If that's the case, I may not have the most recent copy, but as a practical matter, that hasn't changed the work that I have received.
Yep.
But-
Yeah, we should probably make sure that we get a copy to Attorney Dietrich, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Yes, Commissioner Madore?
Yeah, I would really love to see, great relationship between the two of you, and I'm sure you probably have it. And I never want to see, as much as I don't ever foresee us getting back to the days where we're spending as much money on legal fees. But at no time do I think we gotta tie Larry's hands to get outside advice if he feels he needs it. But on the report, I have some questions about the administrator's report. If I could.
Okay, let's go back to the administrator's report. Thank you, Amy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Awesome. Well, Larry, thank you for providing some more detail on this one. I was a little bit surprised last time when, we really didn't get anything written down. I was feeling like our communication, at least what I was thinking we were seeing, was kind of at an all-time low. It's kind of how I was feeling. So I appreciate that. I was curious if you would.
Let's see. Madam Chair, I can't see anything.
Okay. I really would, love to talk more about some of these another time, but a couple things that I was curious about.
Could I interrupt you just one
Sure.
second? I just want to make sure. Can you still hear, Mr. Larry, Commissioner
The
Larry?
video's been cut off, Madam Chair.
Let's stop just a second, see if we can correct that.
Still going.
Thank
You
you.
must miss.
Okay, try it again and try to speak up a little bit.
Can you see now?
The audio, I see
Hello,
audio.
Tina.
I'm getting audio and video, but Isaiah is the main screen and the county commissioners is a tiny screen. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah.
how visualizing it.
All I see is myself, and that's not what I want to see.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Madore, and we'll let Dave. If at any time you can't hear, please let us know.
Yeah, sorry, I probably was mumbling a little bit too. One of the things that I think is the thing I want to talk about the most is you mentioned the PSAP rates, and from my memory, this was like kind of early on when I was a commissioner, and we approved those, and the moment after we approved those, and I thought, like the day after, and I thought more about it, I felt like they weren't high enough from my conclusion. And I know there's just so much history to that, and I didn't exactly understand it all. But I think at this point, kind of with how we have kind of captured the town, and that we have a good service, and it seems like their ratings of our service are probably better than they have ever been, it seems like, from my impression. Maybe I'm wrong, but
You're absolutely right.
thank you. Okay. So that's what I like to hear. And so, like in particular, like when I looked at the Livermore one, it was, I wish I could remember like what the numbers were, but it just seems so small given the level of service. And since we have them captured, and that it just seems like the rules also about what we're required to do have only just increased over time, and the requirements of it definitely seems like it's worth looking at more, but generally, I definitely thought that the rate should have been higher. And so I think, I'm glad we're talking about it again because it's expiring. And I was not shy afterwards about saying that. So I would love to kind of get into the weeds about the details of that because, it's just kind of, I don't know, maybe I just didn't think more about it before we voted on it, but the moment after, I really regretted that.
We still have, time to work this out. There's still FY 2022, in the previous one that we did. And so we, have time to do it. You mentioned a particular town and how you thought that the rates were, it seemed low. Those rates are based on population, countywide. And, the rates are the same for everybody, just based on a population. But one of the things we do need to, we need to look at that. We need to then look at, okay, how much do they pay for the service and how much needs to come from, the tax base. And those in various counties, they're kind of, they're not consistent. They're, I won't say all over the place, but, there are different methods to do that. But one of the things I brought this up early and we're starting to work on is so that we can spend time with it and get it to the point where you're comfortable with it.
So does that mean you're thinking about maybe changing the formula to be more about kind of balance between population and use?
We haven't talked about that at this point. We're starting that process, but I wanted you to know that.
Make sure in your mind too, you're separating Livermore from Livermore Falls, and I know you're the assessor up there, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But there's a big difference when you cross that line
Definitely.
with usage. I'm right about that, right?
Livermore.
That's an assumption, but I'm assuming I'm right.
If
When
I
you
heard
cross that line of Livermore to Livermore Falls, there's a difference.
Yeah, Livermore is just fire, and Livermore Falls is a lot higher because the police rate is, I think, the highest rate we charge. So Livermore is probably just the PSAP rate with fire based on the population, which is very low. Where Livermore Falls, you get the PSAP rate and the police department rate, which I think it's $650 per capita, something like that. I wasn't aware that Administrator Post was gonna bring this up as an issue. But in the future, when you're looking at this, there might be other opportunities that I can talk to you about, but it'll be more appropriate for executive session because it involves contracts. Not tonight, but in future agenda.
Okay, any other questions for the administrator on his report?
Chair.
Go ahead.
Who's going?
You.
Has Clarice heard anything on the American Rescue Plan or any updates at all?
No, she's been involved in all of the meetings that they have, and she keeps up with it, but, to date, they're still just, trying to make the rules, and that's a work in progress.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Larry?
Yes, I had a question, kind of, since we skipped back to the administrator's report. I did have a question actually for Attorney Dietrich, if possible, please.
Sure.
Thank you. So if a county body fails to follow its own bylaws, can it be forced in court to follow those bylaws for a court order or for a court legal action, possibly by citizens?
Well, I think that in general, anyone can be sued for anything, but any legal advice as to the merits of a potential lawsuit would be more appropriately discussed in executive session.
Would it be prudent for a body though to follow its bylaws to avoid such issues?
Again, I can't really give legal advice in open session unless that's the county commissioner's preference. And I would be loath to do that without having that authority.
Okay. It would seem fairly fairly logical that that would be something that would be recommended. But thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chair. I was curious about the various issues with that you have referenced in the department heads.
Oh, this, that, and everything else, day-to-day type of operations, nothing comes to mind right at the moment, but, there's always, not always, but, the sheriff will come in once in a while and they'll say, I've got this, problem, how do we deal with it? And 10 minutes later, so it's just the normal day-to-day things where I'll have, the department heads, of course, as they come in or as I go to them, they will just, whatever issues they have. So it's nothing of any particular, thing that, again, is pressing. It's just, normal operations.
All right. Now, it seems like maybe, we had a bit of a rocky start with the, talking about the American Rescue Plan. And I know that some of the rules are not out, but there are some particular things that I think when I read the law that are clear. Not to say there's a lot that's not clear, but there's some things that I think that are somewhat clear. And even though some of them are not clear, I'm thinking that maybe it could be worthwhile for us to even just kind of discuss it generally to get our heads around what it is. Do you think that would be worthwhile to talk about some of that?
The problem comes, and quite frankly, I mean, I've got a list of things that I, like to see and so on, but then the question comes, if we have, okay, we should do this, and this, and suddenly people that are affected, their hopes get, raised and then get, deflated when it turns out that you can't, you end up that you can't do it. I've got, and I'll get to you later on, but there was somebody that's had an idea for what we can do with a share of that money. It's an outside entity and may or may not be qualified to do, but and we may or may not want to do it even if we were qualified to do it. But so I'm hopeful that this thing, that the rules don't take a very long time to do because, 2024, the money is supposed to be spent, and that in one sense is a ways away. On the other sense, the way time is going, it'll be here. But I think the anticipation is that those rules will be set fairly soon.
For when I read it, we really shouldn't rush things, but when I read it, things that when I try to interpret the rules on it, it seems like some things would be excusable right now that would not be excusable in the future. So say we waited until 2023 to use it. I don't think it would make, it wouldn't be a winning argument anymore to make that happen. So like right now, it kind of seems like potentially we could use it to fix up our HVAC issues because there's a clear line between that and bad ventilation for a virus and people working in an office and all that. When I look at it, it seems like that makes sense, but it may not make as much sense in the future because there won't be as much of a virus threat, especially if people are vaccinated and whatnot. So I think the timeline, is somewhat helpful in terms of the broad brush on what we can use it for. Or my interpretation of it. And I'm thinking maybe it would be great if we maybe involved our attorney in the interpretation of it, because it is really complex. And I don't think, you know, I do find you very capable, and Clarice, but, you know, it's big, and it's complex, and it's big decisions. And I think, you know, what the end game, like, what's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is we have to pay it back. I don't think that's that horrible if it's something that's really worthwhile, money spent on it. But I think the timeline is somewhat important, so I think kind of getting our grips around what it is important.
Other questions or comments for the administrator?
Madam Chair?
Yes. Is this for the
Thank you, Madam Chair.
administrator?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Post, for the benefit of myself and Commissioner Poirier, is it possible for you to possibly just scan your administrator's report and just shoot us an email? I realize that I think you've said you kind of write it the same day, but if you'd be able to just scan it and email it, that would just benefit the rest of us to be able to have that available, please.
I know this isn't inappropriate, but I second that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure
Okay,
that's,
I
I'm
see.
sure that's agreeable to you. Okay, Dave, do we have any members of the public on Zoom?
Two attendants.
Okay, at this time, if any of the members of the public would like to make a comment, we'd like to recognize you. Yeah, raise your hand and give some indication that. Okay, are you satisfied, Dave, to move on?
Give him 1 second.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, new business, and we will turn the floor over to the administrator and the sheriff.
Okay, you have the document in front of you where they did go to bid for the emergency equipment installation to set up the new cruisers. You have the three
We
bids.
received the 3 back, and we're recommending to accept the lowest bid,
Yes.
who we've regularly done business with anyway, and he's excellent as far as follow-up with maintenance and putting the cruisers together. This is something new with the policy that Clarice created. We went to her, discussed it with her, and she said, under the policy, I think sometime over this past year, that we were to go to bid, which actually helped us out because we were curious what the rest of the market would look like. And we went to bid, we had 3 bids come back, and the person that we've been doing business with was actually the winning bid by, I think, $300. Yep, $325. So I'd ask that you accept the bid from Adams Emergency Vehicle in Westbrook, Maine.
Move to accept the bid for Adams Emergency Vehicles in Westbrook, Maine for $34,900.75.
I second that motion.
Okay, Kelly, and any other discussion or questions for the sheriff or Mr. Post? Yes.
Just quick, just give us a quick summary on, this is all new stuff. I know, like, when we.
No, it's not, well,
I know we usually like try to rescue stuff from our old vehicles and put in the new stuff.
like, the expensive stuff is not new, except for like maybe a radio and a watch guard system. But we're taking a radio out of a car, putting it in another car, you know, radios are like $5,000. We're taking the watch guard out, putting it in the car. But there's stuff that's unique to the cars, because it doesn't matter what model you went to, they all changed. And what we've experienced since we've been in, is pretty much they keep changing the model things every 4 years. So we made a commitment, or I did, that every cruiser will now have a cage in it, because the cars didn't have cages. So we're starting from scratch there. I think actually last year, one of you said, and maybe it was the budget committee, why don't you do it to your current cars, put them all in? But the problem was cages, we'll say, what, $1,500? 7 or 8, then installation. But why buy cages for cars that only have like 2 years, 3 years, 1 year left? So what we're doing is, as we purchase new cars, they'll all be putting in cages. We're going with the half back to a full back. It's for, not only prisoner safety and security, but officer safety and security. So some equipment is actually new to the vehicles. Some it's because it expired or it's an additional. We'll try a lot of it as much as possible if we purpose the equipment we do. And this also covers the installation. But because they just changed Ford and Chevy, just changed body style, you gotta add in all the new cages, all the things like that. But high price maintenance stuff, mobile terminals, with the stands, radios and watch guard, just gets taken out of one car and put into another.
How many vehicles is this outfitting?
5?
6.
5. It's 5.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Larry?
Sure. Unless if other commissioners have questions, I will be happy to wait.
No, I don't see any questions.
Thank you. Sheriff, you mentioned, thank you for bringing this up to us. And I appreciate you informing us of the attorney's decision. Obviously, nobody wishes any of that had happened, but I am, I appreciate what they did.
Could we discuss at another time and stay right to the subject, and then I'll give you an opportunity to ask the sheriff any question that he feels he can answer? Could we stay
Sure.
on this? Would you mind if I postponed your question just a little bit so we could stay on the vehicle?
Sure, I wish other commissioners would hold such the same standard, but yes, Sheriff, what you mentioned there was a policy, a new policy. What policy was that? Was that something from the commission or something that was passed by someone else?
It was a policy drafted by Clarice. You guys debated it for several meetings, and then the commissioners approved the new policy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion about the vehicle equipment then? Okay, so to be clear, we are voting, we have a motion and a second to approve the Adams emergency out of Westbrook for $34,900.75. All those in favor? And by Zoom, I'll take your verbal consent or opposed. Commissioner Larry?
Aye.
Okay, and Commissioner Poyer?
I agree.
Okay, that is 7-1. 7-0, thank you. Okay, and to whatever degree you're comfortable addressing that. Commissioner Larry, let's go back to your question that you had for the sheriff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It wasn't really a question. I just wanted to thank the sheriff for doing his best to keep us informed on some of these issues. I feel that that's been a big improvement over previous years, at least for my own feelings. So I do appreciate that. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, discussion items. The commissioners would like to bring up? Yes.
I got
Madore?
a number of discussion items, but one, because it has to do with the budget committee schedule and the commissioner's budget committee schedule. I had brought up 3 years ago, I think it was, to combine our meetings. I should repeat that, because that was the confusing part of what I presented last time. Combine the staff presentation into one meeting so that the staff only have to present once. So before, the staff present one thing to us, and then they try to present the same exact thing to the budget committee. And since I had proposed that, I have seen other communities do something similar. What it does is it takes less of the budget committee members' time, to some extent, but it also it makes it easier for the staff and kind of streamline it, so everyone gets kind of the same presentation. So when one person asks a question, say a budget committee member or us, you know, we all get to hear the answer. And I think it'd be interesting to see, you know, if they were interested in that. Of course, we have the rules, the charter says they have to have like their own meeting and such. And I think that's all still plausible and all still makes sense. But I'm just kind of thinking about the staff and the time and, because some of them ask good questions that, you know, if we're not involved, we don't necessarily hear it and things change. So just wanted to bring that up again as an idea for kind of to streamline things. Because, you know, budget committee members, they don't get paid and such. Any thoughts?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I like the sound of that, and the chart, I don't have the charter language in front of me, the charter may say that the budget committees are allowed to have their own meeting, but probably there's nothing to prevent the budget committee from declaring a meeting at the same time we have one committee. And have these staff people present for two separate meetings, which is technically what we'd have to do legally. Being that it's probably easy to put that to kind of a suggestion. And it is tempting to have, first of all, the value of the budget committee's questions answered while we're in the room. It'd be valuable to have people like yourself who spend a lot of time at the budget committee meeting, wouldn't have to spend as much there probably. I spent very little there myself, but some. So the idea on the surface looks very attractive to me.
And I think we'd have to be very clear that they're not, it's their times of presentation. We would definitely have our own meeting, and they would definitely have their separate meeting, but we're only talking about combining the presentations. Is that what I hear you say?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kelly?
A great idea, but I have a question about logistics. How can we make that happen with the current restrictions on gatherings?
That is a darn good point, darn good question. You know, we do have bigger rooms than this, and I think perhaps maybe this time we can have virtual attendance as well. So maybe a mix of that, but very good point. We definitely need to monitor that.
About August, it's not an issue.
Yeah, that would be
Good
nice.
luck. Madam Chair?
Do you know what where we're at as far as people that we can put in the courtroom? Not this room, but the courtroom?
Sure. So the courtroom two that we're currently using for the past couple of years, the way we set up the tables is not a whole lot of extra room. So if we want to entertain the ideas of having the commissioners there, we just need a little bit of time to try to reset up differently so that everybody has a equal view of each other and any public.
And yeah, hopefully by August, things will look different. Anybody's guess at this point, but someone else. Mr. Fultz, did you have something you wanted to?
The last time this was brought up, and I can't quote chapter and verse, but it was in the charter about, you know, the process. And at that point in time, in discussing it with staff actually, and they may have changed their mind at this point, but I will ask them tomorrow. Staff actually preferred two separate meetings, because sometimes they would be able to tailor what they said to the budget committee based on questions that you had or comments and so on. So at that point in time, they liked the idea of being able to, as opposed to, if I have a bad night with the commissioners, okay, I'll have a better night with the budget committee, as opposed to, you know, all or nothing. So
Gotcha.
there was some concern there at the time.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay.
Madam Chair.
Madore, did you have another, yes, Commissioner Larry?
Sure. I guess my question is, what is the real benefit from this? And I guess, why are we, I guess I'm puzzled as to, we're actively seeking a way to make sure we've got more space for another committee, with all due respect to the budget committee. Why was that not sought for the past few meetings for the public, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I don't recall the public going to be here the last couple of meetings. They're not here today.
It's open to public.
Very open to public today.
What?
This meeting and the last meeting were open to the public.
Yeah, the restrictions have
Nobody
been
came,
lifted.
except for
and,
one meeting where they've been brought here as special interest.
Okay, any other, okay, let's go.
Special interest? Madam Chair, I respectfully disagree. I respectfully must reply to that. That was not a special interest. That was people expressing their First Amendment rights under the state of Maine and the U.S. Constitution. So I respectfully rebut that comment that it was special interest. So thank you.
Madam Chair, it was special in that it was a recruited effort where people came out that one time. They haven't been back since. And the meeting.
Actually, they tried multiple times, Mr.
Yeah.
Michael.
Excuse me, I'm talking here. Excuse me, I'm talking here. And the meeting has
Sorry,
been
I
open.
couldn't hear.
Excuse me, I'm talking here. And the meeting has been open, this meeting and the last meeting.
Okay,
I'm just stating it's hard to know for the public when they're actually allowed or not. We as a commission voted to allow the public here, and then the administrator unilaterally decided that they would not be allowed per the governor's recommendation. So we as a commission voted to allow the public back when they were shut out. They came on Zoom, the meeting after that February 3rd meeting, and were unilaterally in multiple ways slammed out and shut down. So there are significant concerns about that. And I'm concerned why we're willing to do this for the budget committee, with all due respect to the budget committee, while we didn't have that same level of concern for the public, whether they were for or against that resolution or any other option. Thank you.
I'd like to move on, but I
I ate
can't.
all the bait. I ate all the bait already. Somebody else can.
I don't want, the administrator to, take the fall for that. That was my decision based on regulations at the time and the best way to keep the county out of legal trouble.
The administrator has been accused of worse things.
Okay. All right, Mr. Madore, or other, I'm sorry, Mr. Poirier, were you wanting to say something?
Yes. I believe we all received a letter from a Peter Whitney regarding Maine Net Energy Billing Program. And I know the town of Lisbon has done, or was, I read in the paper where the town of Lisbon was doing something with this also. It was just a brief email telling you that there was a possibility of saving costs on our electricity bill. And if I found the right numbers in the budget, there's an opportunity to save over $7,000. So I was wondering if we should have Administrator Post look into this, perhaps check out also what Lisbon is doing, but something that would be saving us money going forward, not just 1 year, but every year. Sounds like something we should be at least looking at.
Looked into it. Dave and I are still talking about it. Dave has met with the gentleman.
Oh, okay.
Discussed that. We haven't come to a conclusion at this point, but that is being looked into.
Okay. Do you know if this is the same group as Lisbon is signed with? The town of Lisbon?
It's not necessarily the group, it's how the law is written and how we could either benefit or not benefit from it. There's a lot of risk that comes involved by taking this agreement.
Part of the problem Dave and I have is a 20-year agreement, and there's some concern because of the amount of subsidy that they're getting. But we are talking about it, and like I said, Dave has met with them, and so that's being looked at.
Okay, thank you.
Is that an incentive to buy into the solar credits? Or is this a separate thing?
I think it's
I-
by choice, I mean.
I think it's tied in with that, kind of, yes.
Commissioner Poirier will come back to you at future agenda items. That may be something you want to put on the agenda to revisit,
Okay,
next meeting, okay?
thank you.
Other discussion items?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Since the COVID-19 vaccinations have been, the eligibility was expanded, I was thinking that maybe we should think about incentivizing our employees to get the vaccine. There's a lot to that, and actually I read an article that Amy was involved in, or Attorney Diedrich, about that, realm of the law of incentivizing that sort of thing. And so there's something to it, but just curious if anyone had any interest in that. I was kind of thinking like half a day off or something. So that was pretty minimal and maybe somewhat of a carrot to make sure that our corrections officers and other people protect themselves and the county.
I don't have interest in that.
Go ahead.
Just to let you know where we are, we've gone the initial offer to the staff, late bloomers to the initial offer to the staff, and we went a second round to the staff. A financial incentive would motivate those that have not taken. Just to let you know.
Sorry, you said a financial incentive would not or would?
It would not. It's, everybody's got their reasons, I respect that, everybody's got their opinions, I respect that. I understand what you're trying to do, but I don't think dangling the carrot or bribing them, or providing an incentive will change what these people think. I think over time, more people are comfortable with it, but we only saw, like, the first initial signups, I think the day it was here, there was like, we have close to 100 employees just in the sheriff's office side. And out of that, only 3 additional people wanted in. They had second thoughts. We offered the second round, and I would say it was a number all combined under a dozen. And I don't want to quote the actual percentages because I wanted them in the paper, and I'm not quite sure what it is. But and I'm not saying that as an insult. That's reality. I would be surprised if we had 50% participation. And it seemed to be predominant with age groups overall, how they were feeling about it. So,
I think it's cosmetic. I think you got people who get irritated and mad, people are getting time off for something that they don't feel is right, they don't want to do. I don't see that being a win.
and I'm just giving you feedback based on what I saw from my staff. General government is totally different. They probably all participated, you know.
No, we
No,
didn't.
you didn't.
I hear where you're going with that. But if the buy-in rate is that low, it seems like that is less than your average individual. So I would be surprised that an incentive wouldn't motivate a solid percentage of the employees to not participate.
You have pregnant people that have the chance of getting a vaccine while being pregnant, so they're out, understandably. You have a number of people that have had it, so they feel they're immune anyway, regardless if they're right or wrong. I don't argue the science about it. And then you have some people, I had it done, but at the same time, I really felt, I looked at history of vaccines, and generally it's not a problem, but I would have liked to see it in the market for a few more years before I actually did it. And there's some people that just have that overwhelming concern. I don't think $300, or there was a bank that offered $500 to their employees. Maybe that hits the mark, but if people have that many issues with it, I don't think money can overcome that. It's just not my opinion. And I thought $500, I think it was TD Bank North, that was a pretty generous incentive, you know. Maybe that does change people's mind, but I don't know.
Other discussion items?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Larry?
I do wish to just speak to this, as other commissioners have spoken multiple times. I have great concerns about trying to incentivize this. If this is so safe and such a fantastic idea, I'm sure they would be knocking each other out of the way in line to get it. Though knowing the good conduct of our staff, they would wait orderly in line. But I do not want to put anyone at a time off disadvantage or a financial disadvantage for not taking an experimental injection. This is genetic therapy. This is not traditional vaccination using the antigen. So it is very concerning to try to get our staff to take it or not take it. That should be a personal choice. And I would just want to make sure, I'm sure you are, Sheriff, but that all of our staff on the government side and on the sheriff's side are making sure that people's privacy is respected, whether they got vaccinated or not, and they're not treated in any way different, i.e. quarantine requirements for those that have been vaccinated or not. I've heard of that happening in the school. So that's I'm just concerned that there would be disparate treatment, and I respect your opinion, Sheriff, but I am very concerned about trying to incentivize or disincentivize those that choose not to take something that's experimental. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion items? Yes,
One more.
okay.
We talked about the American Rescue Plan and it being complicated in the timeline and that sort of thing. And we have our staff working on it and more rules to come. But I was curious if the board had an appetite for potentially involving Attorney Dietrich, if she was interested in sort of the discussion on what is allowed and what isn't allowed, and kind of help us, kind of likely in the beginning talk about what's clear and what's not clear about what we can use it for. I'd love to see some sort of outside perspective on it, and
That would be at a future meeting?
well, in what way?
Well, we're still waiting for guidelines, people keep saying, and even the Mayor Portland said she's not doing much on it because they haven't received any guidelines yet either. Are you saying when some guidelines show up, we could also additionally have the good attorney come and help us through those things? I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I guess whenever. Personally, it seems to me, sooner the better. Of course, I think they deserve some discretion on when is too early or on it, and how we spend the resources and time. That's valuable. But I know we can't make any promises on spending the money or anything, but I do feel like there are a certain number of things that are pretty clear, like hazard pay for employees. That one is pretty clear. And they're pretty specific about that. And that would be good to know, because maybe we could kind of start small. But as I said earlier, I do think that some arguments for using it in creative ways are stronger sooner than later.
Madam Chair, what kind of a delay do we expect on getting rules dropped on that?
I don't know. I mean, they have said May. I listened to the NACO attorney address it on Monday, I believe it was, and he said that the rules are not even finished in Washington yet. So it's not like there's a delay in them getting them to us. They're still working on them on that level. So,
So May might be.
well, I think May is when they said that the checks would start going out, but.
Yeah,
But if
we're supposed to get our check in the middle of May sometime, yeah.
If the rules and
If they
criteria
don't go
aren't
bankrupt
done,
before
then
then.
I don't think they should send the checks out.
I know, it's crazy, but if we get a check in the middle of May, I say we bring the attorney in and we start making some possibility discussions.
I mean,
They haven't sent us rules, they sent us the money, well, they can rules.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to discuss until we receive the money or the
Yeah.
rules.
The rules will stop talking, the money shows up, absolutely.
When the money shows up, we start talking.
I mean, they're all unicorn and rainbow dreams until we, get the rules and the money. So I think that we should wait.
Yeah, well, I think there are some things that are clear, okay? Like I said, the hazard pay, that seems pretty clear. But, there's some statements about giving money to nonprofits or special use governments. And so there's a few lines about giving money to them. But then, you look at the criteria of what you can and cannot use it for, and it doesn't, to me, it doesn't clearly specify that once you give it to special use government, that you can't use it for something else. Like say, it says you can use it for a special use government. So say we made a quasi-governmental agency for, the, capital, or for the, safe office space for county employees and purchased a building on Lisbon Street, that's not clear, right? But there are some things that are clear about it. And so I think we really can kind of start our discussion about it. Lost revenue, that's pretty clear. Like, the lost revenue from the civil division, that is something that seems pretty clear to me that it's designed to do. It's like, reinforcing the floor for cabinets, that definitely doesn't seem like that fits the purview, but it is very clear that filling revenue lost, while ours is minimal, that is very clear. So we could get started on, talking about, filling the coffer with that specific part of the money, the lost revenue.
That's all dandy, but I'm not willing to entertain the conversation and do that. I'm just not
What are the
willing
rules?
to have a conversation.
What are the rules?
Well, those rules are out.
Another rules are out?
Those rules, you can use
Rules
it.
have money. So
No,
I'm
I-
not
no,
going to
you're-
engage in this until there's money. I'm not even gonna have a conversation about it
I can go.
until we have money.
Well, the way I feel is that we, the term is it's the rescue plan, and there are people who are hurting in our community, and we're gonna be getting this money, and we're gonna be getting it really quickly. And it is gonna make the biggest impact the sooner we have our house in order. So I don't think there's anything wrong with, engaging in with our staff and an attorney to figure out, to broaden their understanding and to work collaboratively to figure out what we can and cannot use it for. But it seems like there's some buy-in to engaging an attorney about the rules. Do I hear that?
I'm fine with that. When the rules, when we have the rules.
When we have to lose money, yeah.
Yeah, well, the law was approved, so we have that.
Okay, look, okay.
You're just.
Madam Chair.
I'm done.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I don't know what the rules are. You seem to know what some of the rules are, and I don't want to go and put serious energy into something when we know what some of the rules are. And there are some things we can do, and it would be tempting to go spend the money on the things that we know we can do so far, but then later on, we may find out when the actual rules show up, what we can spend the money on in all of the different categories. I'd like to have all that before us when we consider everything, and I'd like to have people show up at that meeting when it happens with all the different ideas. Good Commissioner Madore may have a head start on that possibly because he's on top of it. But I'd like to have a meeting where people come up with ideas and do this, 500 things on the table. We start picking them out, we start narrowing them down. We agree that now we don't want to do that. We do want to fix the boilers, whatever. That's the kind of meeting I want to see. I think it'd be very functional, and very fair. People bring their ideas. We know how much money we have. We know what the rules are written down, and we can have Attorney Dietrich tell us what her interpretation is of some of those rules, if we're not sure.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move on to,
Madam
future
Chair.
agenda. Mr. Poyer, did you have a future agenda item?
Madam Chair.
He spoke up first. Isaiah.
Do you have a future agenda item?
We were speaking still on the discussion item, so I just wanted to add a comment on there, please. It's been very confusing, even looking at our own website, whether the county building is open to the public or not. And after the way they've been treated, where they saw a vote for us to actually allow the public in, and then they were told they were not allowed. And so much questions, even a few days beforehand, on and on and on. I can't blame the public for never showing back up. And frankly, much of the commission is responsible for that. So I would just state, we shouldn't say, oh, they were just a public interest group because they haven't showed back up. They've been kicked in the teeth multiple times. So I don't blame them for not showing up. Frankly, it's disheartened a lot of their faith in the governmental system and free and open and peaceful redress of their grievances. So it's really a shame. Thank you.
Anyone else, or can we move on to the future agenda? Did you have another discussion item, or?
Yeah, not another item, but I just wanted to respond to that if I could. I do feel like potentially, you know, a new website would be awesome, because I think if things might be easier for people to find. But I do think potentially we could, you know, the attendance thing, like, I don't see anyone here today, the door's open, you know, Marshall's here, you know, there's no signs about not being here. There's nothing posted about people not being able to come or anything like that, but I do think potentially we could include, you know, more on our website about the ongoings of what we're doing, like, you know, the administrative support, like, that could be included. You know, I don't know, I feel like we could potentially present a little bit more to the public, so, anyway.
Okay, thank you. Future agenda items.
I have one that I mentioned earlier, Susan Serini of the Eastern Maine Development Corporation. I'd like to speak.
That was it, now.
C-E-R-I-N-I.
That sounds great.
Thank you. Any other, Mr. Poirier, did you want your issue you brought up at discussions to be a agenda item? I told you to get back to you on that.
Yes, I'd like to have that as a future agenda item.
I guess that would be in the lap of Dave and Mr. Post to sort of, you know.
Yeah, what I'm looking for is, I didn't realize they were even looking into it, and I think we should just be made aware of if it's practical or not, and if not, why, and obviously the pros and cons.
Roland, when was the email sent?
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
When was the email sent? I think I missed it.
When was the
Oh, when the
email sent?
email was sent, March 23rd, 9:06 a.m.
It was Peter Whitney.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, anyone else?
If anyone sees any interesting emails that we get, I would love to hear it, because I don't know, we just get so much junk in there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to sort out what is meaningful or not. And I think it seems like it's tailored to me, and then I look at it, it's like somehow about paving, and it's like, get lost. So,
I haven't mastered the spam filter yet either.
Okay, there's no other future agenda items, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Okay,
Second.
Commissioner Ames, or Commissioner? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And thank you. 7-0.
We hit that. We have a workshop, right?
Good workshop, huh?
On the original agenda, was the workshop out, or was that just?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll take just a short break and then we'll start the workshop.
should we mention it to the camera?
Thank you.
We're gonna take just a short break and then we'll start back up with the workshop.
Okay, thank you.
Did Roland go away?
Oh, he's still there.
Larry,
He
it was
just,
nice seeing you.
Same here.
he
I'm
just,
sure we'll talk
showed
soon. I
camera.
gotta go put my son to bed. Thank you.
How are you, Mr. Cody?
Very good.
Thank you for all your work with this. You wear so many hats.
Oh, too many. So I've got a little few issues every once in a while, so just send me a message if you can't hear or whatever.
Okay. No,
Make some adjustments.
I appreciate your efforts and your work on this. It's, that keeping pipes flowing and keeping electricity where it's supposed to be and not where it's not. And thank you
Yeah,
for
I'm
what
glad
you guys
this isn't erroneously muting people.
I actually called.
I appreciate what you're doing.
Because we're recording this, I'm gonna stop this meeting and
Gotcha.
then just right back in, okay?
Will do.